Today we are going to show you how you can leverage the Autodesk Construction Cloud on projects that could involve the use of Revit along with Plant 3D. Many projects that are work shared only involve Revit. However, now that we can do this in the cloud, there are other disciplines getting in on this besides the building disciplines, namely those that do plant design and layout. The tools we're going to show today will illustrate how this can be done on projects like this, where these two Autodesk products are used. Here's the agenda for today. We'll be giving an overview of 3 of the modules that are in the Autodesk Cloud. The first one being document management, or Docs. We'll show you where your files end up after initiating collaboration from inside software such as Revit and Plant 3D, and a couple of things you can do with those files once they're in the cloud. The next module is called Design Collaboration. We'll show you how you can share models between Revit and Plant 3D by creating packages and consuming them. And when using Design Collaboration, model coordination can then provide automatic clash detection. So we'll show you that. And we'll take a quick look at the Insight module, which I like to refer to as the project homepage. Some people call it the dashboard. Now, we won't be going into great detail on these modules today. This workflow is focused mainly on sharing models between Revit and Plant 3D, and just what's required to accomplish that in the cloud. Here are the products and the tools that will be in use today. Obviously, the design software is needed, like Revit and Plant 3D. Those are part of the AEC collection. From the group of cloud tools, BIM Collaborate Pro and the desktop connector are in use. Revit, Plant 3D, and the desktop connector are installed on our workstations. And BIM Collaborate Pro is a subscription that is just assigned to the designers who are using Revit and Plant 3D. Okay, let's take a look at the overall workflow. All the authoring is done in the respective design tools. Now, when it's time to co-author with your internal team, so there's multiple users, and you'll save or synchronize your work, and when you do that, that sends it through the desktop connector and stores the files in a secure common data environment. This common data environment is now known as Autodesk Docs. The product we use to facilitate this is BIM Collaborate Pro. The files that are stored here, they aren't necessarily made available to others until you're ready. And once you're in the cloud, it looks like this. As I mentioned, Autodesk Docs is the common data environment, and it does more than just store your files. Docs also handles things like automatic versioning and comparison. You can do issue tracking, redlining, and there is a very robust viewing tool for both 2D drawings and 3D models. When the time comes to release your work to others or share it, you can use the Design Collaboration module to enable a shared workspace, and the rest of the team will be able to access that. This gives us control over when others can access and what they can access. And when the data is shared via design collaboration, the model coordination module can aggregate all those files and perform automatic clash detection, all the while providing you tools for creating issues and tracking changes. In other words, when you share models, you don't have to perform additional setup in order to coordinate them. Okay, that's just an overview of the workflow. However, there is another module you will find useful. It's called Insight. This module serves as the project dashboard that shows the project status, any tasks that have been assigned, current issues, and so on. This module can be configured with whatever information you might need for the project. And from here on, we're going to focus on just the process after files have been saved or synchronized from inside Plant 3D or Revit and then sent to Docs. Okay, quick overview of Docs. As I stated, it is the common data exchange space for all your project files. It will handle automatic version tracking and comparison between versions. The viewer is capable of showing you 2D files as well as 3D, and there are markup tools embedded in the viewer, and I'll show you those once we get to that. And lastly, we can also track issues from here if we need to. Okay, as we start getting into design collaboration here, at some point, we know that Revit users will need to link files coming from Plant 3D and vice versa. However, you might not want someone accessing that until the file is ready. Design collaboration provides the mechanism to make sure that no one uses your data until the time is right. You'll select the desired files that you want to share and create a package. That package will then generate copies of the files and place them in a shared area of Docs. The other team members will then bring those files into their respective areas within Docs. Then the files can be linked into your software. Let's take a quick look at an example, and then we'll show you how it's done. Let's say the Plant 3D team has been working on their piping and equipment models, maybe even some structure. Even though they are working like they always have inside of Plant 3D, their files have been stored in Docs all along. Someone from the Revit team makes it known that they need to link the plant models into their building model. A plant team member can go to Design Collaboration and create a package containing those files. Then a Revit team member can consume that package, which brings the latest version of the files into their workspace in Docs. From there, the plant models can be linked into Revit. Keep in mind that at no time can a Revit team member directly access the plant team's live files. That's very important. Now let's go in the other direction, from Revit to Plant 3D. So the Revit team needs to share one of the building models to start with. So from Revit, the file must be exported to DWG and then saved to Docs. Next, a Revit team member goes to Design Collaboration and creates a package. After that, a plant team member consumes it, which brings the file into their workspace in Docs. Then the building file can be XREF'd into Plant 3D. Again, at no time can a Plant team member directly access the Revit team's live files. Okay, now let's see it in action. Just going to change screens here. And let's see here. There we go. So now we're looking at the project files from inside of the Docs module. This is in the Autodesk Construction Cloud using your web browser. I am currently playing the role of an engineer, so I have certain permissions. As you can see in the structure here, this folder right here happens to be the Plant 3D folder structure that any Plant 3D user might recognize. That could be on your local hard drive or on a file share, your server, etc. This is the exact same folder structure that we're used to seeing. Our models are in this folder right here. So in the Docs module, I can go in here and I can view one of the files. This is outside of Plant 3D, which is good. So there's no way for me to make any changes to those files without the designers knowing about it. I'm just going to view this in 3D. And so here's one of the files that was created in the Plant 3D project that is shared to Docs. Markup tools are down here at the bottom. All of the Plant 3D properties are available here. So if I wanted to look at, say, a pipe segment or something like that, I can open up the properties, and everything I see here is the same data that is available inside of Plant 3D. So this viewer it carries the intelligence from the software, which is nice. Revit does the same thing if I were viewing a Revit file right now. Okay, so the files are there. This is the storage area or the common data environment. There's also a shared folder here. This is the area where design collaboration is going to put files once we begin sharing. Notice right now that there is no Revit data visible here. That's because I do not have permission to see things coming from, say, the architectural team or the building team. So what I'm going to do is prepare a package so that the Revit user can use the plant files inside of Revit. So I'm going to come up here, I'm going to switch over to Design Collaboration. And I can explore the files from here, just like I did in Docs, or view them. I can also do it up here. And I want to show you a certain feature here in Design Collaboration that we don't have over in Docs. So I'm going to click on Project Models. That's going to open up the viewer inside of Design Collaboration. But over here on the left, you can choose multiple models and overlay them. So it's a great way to see the files within context. And if I only need to see one, then I can just uncheck that file over here, and then it's like it is over in Docs. But that's a very nice feature, so we can see things almost coordinated. So you can explore the files before you create any packages or do any sharing. Now, once you're ready to create a package, you're going to pull down the swim lanes. That's what we call this button right here. That's going to open up the top bar of design collaboration. And you'll see a swim lane for each of the teams that are involved in the project. This project has two teams. We have a piping team, which is our Plant 3D users, and an architecture team, which takes care of the Revit models. Each of these swim lanes keeps track of everything that has been shared throughout the project. And this is how we access the other team's files. So to create this package, I'm on the piping team right now, and I'm going to come over here to the right and choose Create New Package. Then I'll come over here to the left side and I'll select the files that I want included in that package. So I'm going to choose these two files here. I'm going to save those and then share them. And we'll fill out the form here. Oh, I do need to give this a name. I can add a description if I want. That's optional. And once we share the package, copies will be created and they will be placed in the shared folder over in the Docs module. Depending on how many files you include in your package, it may take shorter or longer to prepare that and make it available to the other teams. So that's the first step. The second step, I'm gonna hand it over to Alice. She's playing the role of the architect who's going to consume that package and get the files ready for linking into Revit.
So there was a quick question I was going to let you address before we moved on, and that was somebody asked if the Smart Plant 3D or Plant 3D model with smart content can be linked into Revit, or it needs to be exported out to a non-smart file.
Let's hold that question until later in the webcast. I'll be addressing that exact issue.
Okay. And then there was a question about the different types of linking. So I'll go over this first as we talked about, and then maybe I'll address that quickly. First of all, I know Brett wanted to point out here that I am in the architectural role. So in Docs, I'm not seeing anything on the plant side, but I can see my team's folder and the consume folder. So I want to make sure I pull in to my consume folder from my team's work area that latest file that Brett shared. So under design collaboration, I can come to my swim lane, the architectural swim lane, and I can see all of the packages that have been created, all the files that have been saved. And you'll see there's different colors, there's different numbers in here. Brett's been very busy creating packages, so there's a lot of different nodes in here. If I double click on that node, it will expand it out. If it's a circle, it's going to be a package. If it's a square, it's going to be the last time it was saved. So here I can see that he recently created 3, but he just created that new one, so I can consume that. If it's open, it's not yet been consumed. If it's closed, then it's been consumed. So I can click on that. And once I click on that, I've got some options here. I can simply consume it. I could explore it and take a look at what's been done. Or if I wanted to, I could compare the changes that have happened since the last time I consumed or looked at it. So I'm just going to go ahead and say consume. And it'll consume that package and it will put it into my consume folder. I'm updating my latest file here. I'll need to let it refresh here for a second. And then I'll have the latest version that I can then link directly into my Revit. Anything else you want me to talk about? Oh, I was going to talk about the linking. So the question came in, can you live link? There's a couple of different ways that linking can be handled in within the cloud. most people do not like to share or give access to their live model or their work in progress model. If you're a high trust environment or you're working within a team, so like all of the architects can work within a company, could work within their team live, but typically across disciplines, we don't do live linking. We'll either put it in a shared folder or we'll use the consume process. The main difference between the shared and the consume process is on the consume process, you get to choose when your link file is updated. And most people prefer that. All right, Brett, I'll hand it back to you.
Okay, so quick review of what we just did. In design collaboration, each team has its own swim lane at the top. We had the piping team create a package and shared it with the Revit team in this case. The Revit team then consumed that package, which provided updated copies of their own, or into their own consume folder. And like Alice said, the receiving team gets to decide when those updates are reflected in their linked files. And from there, the plant models, obviously, that's when we would do our linking. And really the only difference here is, where do we go to get these files? When you're inside of Revit, you will browse to this project into the folder called consumed, and it will be underneath your discipline's folder. So each discipline involved in this process will have their own consumed folder. And that's how we protect the files for each team until you're ready to share them. All right, so next up, model coordination. Now let's take a look at that module. As I mentioned before, once you create a package, the updated copies of the models will be placed in the share folder, previously set up by Design Collaboration, at which time, when you're ready to consume those, you would go do that. But in the middle there, at that time, model coordination will begin looking for clashes automatically. So that's to the side of packaging and consuming. Once it hits that shared folder, model coordination starts looking for clashes. So let's take a look at that. All this time, while we've been showing you these things, model coordination has been doing that. So I'm going to switch over to that module. See the files involved here in a moment. And here they are. And as you can see, here's the two files from Plant 3D. And then there's a building model, a Revit model that has been there all along. So before we started today, the architecture team created a package of the Revit file. And it's just been there waiting in the wings. Over here on the right, there is a count of the number of clashes involved with each of these files. So that's the first thing worth mentioning there. To look more closely at the clashes, we'll come over here to the left and go to clashes. And you'll get a matrix that looks like this of all the files that are involved and how many clashes are involved among all of your files. Now, this is a smaller project. There's only 3 models involved. Some projects have quite a bit more than this, so the matrix will have a lot more bars on it. And to investigate the clashes, you'll click on one of the bars, whichever one you're interested in. I'm going to go to this middle one here, which is going to show us clashes between the structure file coming from Plant 3D and the equipment file coming from Plant 3D. So you click on one of those bars that's part of that matrix there, then those two files that are involved will get loaded. Again, the viewing technology is available. And down the left side, you will see the individual clashes. And the best thing to do is just start clicking on them. Let the viewer take you to that clash. This is very similar to Navisworks, except it's automatic now. We didn't have to set anything up. And so I can see right there, there's a clash between this brace and a piece of pipe. And we can click around until we decide what we're going to work on. And we can expand on each of the clashes, and we'll get the coinciding member that's part of that particular clash. Okay, so, and there's 3 here at the top. What I can do now is if I want to have someone address these clashes, I'll check these 3 boxes here and then create an issue. When you create an issue, we will want to mark in the view where that issue is located. That just helps people locate it more quickly. So I'll just select right about there and start that issue. And then a form's going to come up here in a moment, and then I can fill that out, assign it to someone, add notes if I need to. So there's the 3 clashes that are part of this issue that I'm creating. I can assign it right there, and I'll just assign it to this user here. That's my other engineer today. I can also assign watchers to this issue. So if I want other people to be notified, I can add them here. And since there's only 1 at the moment, then there's no more to add, but the more members that you have in your project, then you can choose them to keep them informed. And the rest of the slots speak for themselves. I can assign a due date, when it's begun. There's a list of root causes that are available. So I'll pick a root cause. We'll just say it's a coordination issue. And a photo gets captured. A screenshot will get captured automatically as you're creating the issue. And then any comments that we would want to add here. And once we submit that, the watchers and the person you assign the issue to will receive an email. And the email will provide links to bring them into the clash so they can address it. And from there, they'll go to the software that they're using, make the changes, synchronize the files, and then create packages to provide the updates. And then the cycle just starts over again. Now, once you submit an issue, there we go. I think I did that twice. Then the Insight module can provide us some extra information. So I'm going to open up the Insight module. And this screen here is usually the first screen people see when they receive an email that they are assigned a task or they just got invited to a project. This might be the screen that you're taken to from your initial emails. And this screen can be configured with lots of different information. What I have here are lists of any issues that get created. So there we go. There's the issue right there. There's also a list of all the packages that are underway or that have been created. So if I want to address this issue, then I could do it from here, or I could do it from my email as that user. That looks like
I might just quickly I might just quickly add, Brett, there that you can customize this landing page so that it shows the cards that are relevant to what you do and what your responsibilities are, which is it can be a great help. So you don't have to go looking for, which packages or which issues. You can have them set up right on this page.
Yes, and that is user specific.
Correct.
Okay, so so additional details, that would take you straight into that issue on the web. We can always go back to the other tabs if we need to. So there's the issue right there, at which time, I'd be opening Plant 3D, making the changes, and then syncing the files back up. At which time we'd come in here and close the issue, like you saw over here. So right now it shows that it's open. Then once it's finished, we would close it, and then it would show that status here on your home page. And then the next time model coordination runs, when the updates come in, then those clashes would be addressed. So we would see a change. If I come back over here to model coordination, back on this screen here, then these changes, the count that's in the matrix, will reflect what's been done so far. Real nice thing about this is, everyone, is that you don't have to do additional setup to set up model coordination like you do in, say, Navisworks. It just runs in the background.
While you're there, did you want to quickly show? Oh, it's right.
Oh.
I was going to say quickly show how you can, sometimes there's non-issues that you can move out of the way.
Yes, thank you. So let's go back into where we were. There's some items in here. For example, I know on the Plant 3D side, sometimes we'll have pipe supports in the model along with our piping, and you may see where the bolts go through your support beams. Technically, that's a clash. So if we look over here, we're seeing that. But some things might show as a clash in your models, but they may not be real clashes in your mind. And for those, we can select those and set them to not an issue. Give it a reason. I'll just say field fix on this, because these, the holes for those supports might be drilled on the fly. Comments if I want to. And then that removes them as clashes as far as model coordination is concerned. And so now this did say 7 right here before, and now it says 4. The other 3 clashes are counted here as well because I assigned them as an issue. And this is all live. I didn't have to rerun anything, load up any new models or anything like that. Okay. So here's a quick review of model coordination. When a package gets created through design collaboration, clash detection begins automatically. Also, you could manually upload files to one of the shared folders, and that will trigger clash detection as well. You can mark the locations of the clashes. That helps people find them quickly, create issues, assign them to team members so they can be addressed. Team members will receive an email when that happens. You can also create extra views to help highlight these areas. And the issues can be accessed from the Insight module or the main dashboard. So think of a project manager who doesn't use any of the software. They also don't do the coordination, but they're the project manager, so they're more likely to visit the Insight module more than the other modules. And so that really helps the non-software users keep up with the project. Okay, now for some tips. This may answer that first question, Alice, that you brought to our attention. This could relate to if you're doing live linking, but really this just has to do with the relationship between Plant 3D and Revit. So after models have been shared using model coordination and design collaboration, and you link a Plant 3D model into Revit, it might appear like the image on the left. Then, typically, what the Revit user does is tries to cut a section through the plant model, and it doesn't appear correctly in those views either. This happens, the Plant 3D user will need to run the command export to AutoCAD, which is found in the project manager, and then package that file instead of the main file, and then link that file into Revit, and you'll get the image on the right. And the reason for this is because Revit requires incoming files from AutoCAD to be plain solids. And the export to AutoCAD command does that. It just creates that copy, turns everything into a 3D solid, and then Revit, they appear like you would expect them to when you link it into Revit. So therefore, when a Plant 3D user knows this ahead of time, that they will be sharing with Revit users, you can go ahead and run this command, the export to AutoCAD command, which is in the project manager, and then save that file to your working folder in Docs. So I'm going to pause right there. I want to show you that I actually already did this. I provided the file. So if you think, to pretend for a moment, we're inside Plant 3D. When I did the export to AutoCAD, I saved it in the same folder where the two models are. So there's another file, and I just appended it with export right there. It looks just like the piping equipment drawing, and then created a package of it, and then that would be the file that the Revit team would use. So the piping, the elbows, and the equipment appear solid. And then that file there is the one that created the package and ends up in the shared folder, which is over here. So if that doesn't answer whoever asked that question, you can let us know in the chat panel. If that clarifies it for you, please let us know. I'm happy to elaborate if not. But that is one of the things that comes up early on when people are doing this for the first time. Somebody links into Revit, and then everything looks like wireframe, and they don't know why. Hopefully now you know why. Okay, a couple other tidbits, and then we'll address any other questions. But this does wrap up our presentation for today. I want to share with you our resources that you can take advantage of for self-help. Our YouTube channel has all our previous recordings of webcasts that we've done. And this isn't the only webcast on the subject of the cloud or sharing with Plant 3D, BIM 360, if you're still using that as, you know, as your naming for all the tools here. This webcast for today will be available shortly. Plus, we have plenty of articles on our blog at hagerman.com and additional content for our customers on our customer hub. And for more in-depth assistance, you can contact us for any specific needs that you might have. I'd like to thank everyone for attending today. I hope you find this useful. Alice, do you have anything?
Nope, I think we're good.
All right. Ashley, back to you.